Let's come to another story now. And this is part of lockdown. And you may well have seen this video online. It's absolutely extraordinary when a retired nurse, aged 73, Lenya Angeli, was arrested by police after she attempted to rescue her 97-year-old mother from a care home so she could be looked after by her family, simply because after 9 months of not being allowed to touch her and speak with her, be with her properly, she felt that she would be better off at home with her family in her final days, weeks, months or years. The entire thing was filmed by her daughter, Leandra Ashton. And let's have a little listen. And if you're watching online, don't forget you can watch our live stream on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. Let's have a little watch and a listen to what actually happened.
So let's just make this very clear. My nan, my 97-year-old nan here, who we have taken from the care home because we haven't seen her for 9 months, is now being taken back by force to her care home. My mother has been arrested. My mother is in the back of the car here. She is a nurse. She is a fully qualified nurse who is wishing to care for her own mother. And here we have an incredible use of police time to take my 97-year-old grandmother back into a care home where she is deteriorating, where we haven't been able to see her for 9 months. Nan, I love you and we are going to fight for you.
I mean, if you can listen to that and you can watch that video and you can find it, we'll put it back out on Twitter, we'll put it on our YouTube page. And if you've missed the live stream, and you can not shed a tear and not be horrified at what is happening in this country, then you have got a heart of stone. Police pursued the mother and daughter to a local garden centre where that arrest took place after the mother decided to rescue her own ageing mother. Let's talk to Leandra Ashton now. Good morning to you, Leandra.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. I think it was incredibly brave of you to put that out online, but I'm really pleased you did, because I think it's really important that people understand this isn't just happening to one family. This isn't a one-off. There are tens and tens and tens of thousands of families right now who are being separated from their loved ones in a care home and are desperate to see them, touch them, spend time with them, hug them, and are unable to do so. Tell us a little bit about the background to this and your 97-year-old grandmother and the situation she's been in.
Yeah, so I mean, we've tried to go down every official channel we could. I've written to my MP countless times, had no response. We raised what's called a safeguarding issue because we could see the deterioration of my nan early down in lockdown. She has dementia. It takes a lot of time to feed her and to give her drinks. And in a care home setting, what we found over the years is it's just not adequate. So it does require somebody from the family to be there to feed her as regularly as possible. And my mum was going in every day before lockdown. So when that stopped, the impact that had on my mum as well as on my nan was horrific to see. The fact that there are rules in place that are separating families and rules that are purporting to protect and to save lives, I find disgusting. And the narrative needs to change because we are focused so purely on one illness. And as terrible as that illness is, it is one. And the death rate from that is still not as high as the death rate from so many other illnesses.
Well, indeed. And your mother, she's 73, but she's a retired nurse. So she would know how to care for your grandmother. She'd be able to give her, your family believe, better care than she's getting in the nursing home because of that, particularly the feeding need. And we know one of the main reasons people with dementia do end up fading away and dying is because they don't eat and it can often take 2 hours to feed them a very small amount of food and there's no one there to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been a problem for years with my nan's care. So under normal circumstances, if we could visit her, we could perhaps oversee that. But in the current climate where we can't go in and see her, we can't feed her, this idea that we are allowed visits through a window is beyond cruel because my nan doesn't understand this. I stopped the visits. The last visit that I had before this one that's been videoed, my nan reached towards the window towards me and it was just heartbreaking. I mean, all I could do was cry. And again, we're not alone. There are thousands and thousands of families in this same position. And it's got to change. It's just that, quite simply, this question of saving lives, but what about the quality of life?
Well, indeed.
That's what we need to change.
And when you and your mum, you were visiting your nan, and your mum was able to hug her for the first time, and I'm assuming, of course, it being a loving family, being very careful, being shielding to make sure not a risk to your grandmother, and then it was an impulse, wasn't it, to just say, do you know what, we've got to get her out of here, and you drove to a local garden centre, and that's when the police were called.
Yeah, it was a total impulse. It was a heightened moment when a care assistant, somebody in the office, spoke to my mum in a way that was really unhelpful. And my mum just said, "Could I pass these flowers through to my mother?" And she used the flowers to force open the door, and she just hugged her mother. We didn't think it through, but we have talked about bringing my nan home since the beginning of all of this. Yeah. But we just don't know how we can do it because of this legality of power of attorney.
Well, that's it. I think a lot of people are wondering, well, hold on a minute. How can you not have the right to bring your grandmother home to her loving family, especially with her daughter who's able as a nurse to care for her? We know she knows what to do. On what legal basis can they stop her leaving the care home?
So when someone has dementia, there has to be something called a power of attorney in place. Now, we have power of attorney for my nan's finances, but it was an oversight by my grandfather before he died, thinking that my nan would always be able to express what she wanted. So the power of attorney for well-being or for health wasn't put in place. So now all decisions have to be made with the local authorities. But unfortunately, the local authorities are cutting us out of the conversation. It took the police to tell us yesterday that my nan has a new social worker. And they then informed us that we weren't on the correct paperwork. So it becomes like this Kafkaesque nightmare where you're just stuck and unable to just quite simply have any influence over your loved one's life.
Well, your grandmother's effectively being held prisoner. I mean, to all intents and purposes, her family want to have her home safely and she can't leave. The state has basically taken over control of her life rather than her family being able to care for her. I know your mother was in that awful phrase, de-arrested. She won't face any charges. I mean, frankly, if she did face charges, I mean, I think there'd be riots on the streets, to be honest with you. But what happens now? What's your next attempt to get your grandmother to the safety and the comfort and the love of her own home?
I mean, we're really hoping that the amount of media coverage and the incredible support from the public will help us kind of shift this conversation and start broadening the conversation around health. We will go down trying to achieve an emergency power of attorney so that we'll have more rights over my nan, but that can be a really lengthy process. We're just going to do everything we can just to keep fighting, just to try and get my nan home, because it's clearly the better place for her now, because we can't visit, and who knows how long this next lockdown is going to last for.
Well, Leandra, I am absolutely sure that every single person listening here is absolutely feeling your pain and the love that you and your mother have for your grandmother. And she's, you know what, I know going through all of this, she's very lucky to have the love of her family like this. And we know that tens of thousands of other families are going through exactly this sort of thing as well. And you are fighting the good fight. I mean, this is insanity, this is cruelty, and this is not what should be happening in a free country to loving families who just want the best for each other. And I salute you. And I'll be in touch with you. We've been in touch yesterday. I'll be in touch with you because I know some darn good lawyers.